Okay. So why are so many teachers against Senate Bill 54?
Primarily because it was prohibiting their freedom of speech. Many teachers are using social media and technology to reach their students in the classroom, and because of that bill and how poorly written it was and ambiguous, many of the teachers are not going to be able to utilize some of the technology that they had been using with their kids when school started when the law went into effect on August 28th.
Okay, so what are some ways that teachers have been using the social media networks and things like that to teach their children?
Well, some of the websites are that they are downloading. For instance, we've had a journalism teacher who said that she has a website that the kids access, and when they write their, stories or whatever, they send it to her for proofing, and that's just a communication between that student and that teacher, which would have been prohibited because it was in a public forum. So that's one source. Teachers use Moodle, they use Blackboard, they tweet on Twitter, and all of those would fall under that social technology that could be prohibited with that bill.
Okay. So I know there's been revisions made to the bill in order to make it a little more ambiguous. How does the Teachers Association feel about it now?
We've supported Senate Bill 1, which is the rewrite to that portion of the social media aspect of Senate Bill 54. And basically what that does is it puts the responsibility of the district to determine what is best for their constituents, their students, and teachers, and develop a policy that addresses appropriate communication or appropriate use of social media within their district. So how one district chooses to do it versus how another district chooses to do it will vary, and should vary, because it depends on what's best for their community and their needs.
Okay. So I know a lot of this was about they were trying to protect their children, like parents were trying to protect their children from sexual predators and things like that. How do you feel about that when it comes into relationship with teacher-student communication?
Well, there are already policies in place. Teachers go through background checks, and there's a law that they have to have a background check upon employment. And so we feel that there are already safeguards in place for those kinds of behaviors. Now, does every safeguard block every sexual deviance? Absolutely not. It doesn't in the real world. It's not going to in the educational setting. But the safeguards that are put there right now pretty much prohibit a lot of that from taking place. And I think, for the small minority that has found the caveat around those systems, that's where parental supervision comes into play as well. Parents should know what their kids are doing when they're online. They should know who they've got as Facebook friends. They should be reviewing that, just as the district does. And so, I think that we are aware that there are those issues. Those have to be addressed at the home front as well as in the school setting.
Okay. So what are some of the positive aspects of teachers using social media?
I think it's one way that they are able to establish a middle ground with their students. The fact is that the kids that teachers are teaching today and working with, they're technologically advanced. They're very oriented towards that. Many times you'll see kids sitting there, instead of having a conversation, they're texting each other back and forth. And the fact is, teachers have to meet the students where they are most comfortable. And in this day and age, the comfort level is with technology. And so if teachers fall behind in that area, then they're losing that's common ground with their students. And that's essential for them to move forward with student achievement.
Okay. So, have you found it difficult for teachers to gain footing in social media with their students?
I think if you ask any teacher, I think that they have, there's a learning curve with the use of technology. And I think they are having to stay up and stay current in those areas and learn. I think that many of them are doing that through professional development. Many of the schools are identifying ways. Many districts had, Facebook pages of classrooms for parents and students to be on in a particular teacher's room. So I think the teachers are just staying up to date with the current, whether it be technology, whether it was textbooks back 10, 15 years ago, they're staying current with the field with the kids. And so I think that for the teachers, I think that they're learning how to use it and how it's received in their classroom. And from what I understand with some students that have been interviewed, they've shared of how it's being used. In fact, I've heard some students say it's like having a teacher at home. You can post something on a blog and ask a question to complete a homework assignment. So it gives them access to that teacher that back 10 years ago they didn't have until they got to school the next day. And so I think it opens up just one more avenue to safeguard and make certain that kids are getting the education that they need and the answers to questions that they have before they get to school.
Okay. What sort of, how do you think it would alienate the teacher-student relationship if we were to not allow, like, social networking and things like, and using the internet as a source for students and teachers for teachers to teach students?
How do I think it would alienate? I think it would be a disservice, actually. I don't know that it would necessarily alienate, but I think it would be a disservice because the fact is the technology is the future. And if teachers aren't doing instruction like that, I mean, what about virtual classrooms? We have opportunities now that we can have students observing a classroom that's going on in another foreign country. That wasn't accessible to kids years ago, but it is today. I think if teachers don't take advantage of these technologies, that's doing a disservice to our kids, because they are, bottom line, this is the world that they will be living in. And we know that most of the jobs that will be around in the next 10, 20 years haven't even been created yet. And I think that as educators, we have a responsibility to make certain that we are planning for that future. And so I think that if we don't meet these children at this level, then I don't think we're doing our job.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say about Senate Bill 54 or, Congress's approach to trying to regulate communication through the internet?
I think the intent is good. I think we do need to be cognizant of the risks of our kids, but I don't think that we need to overreach what our responsibility is also. And I think that we lose sight sometimes of the future in trying to protect for the present. And I think that all of us that are not practicing teachers in the field, we were unaware of how technology was being utilized and social media especially being utilized by classroom teachers today. Because, I had to laugh when I was a classroom teacher, which has been almost 20 years ago. We used the computer as just a faster typewriter. We didn't have access to all of these things, that classroom teachers have now. And it is a sign of our time, and that the educational system has changed. And I think that we didn't ask those people that are the practitioners, those people that are employing those things, we didn't ask them beforehand. And as a result, we found out that we were limiting what they were doing positively with kids and technology, and we lost sight of that and forgot to ask those people that it mattered the most to as to who was going to be impacted the most with this law. And so I think that we're happy that the legislators listened, that the governor listened. We know that it took a lawsuit and with the judge putting that injunction in place to ensure that that did not go into law and limiting and basically, I think hindering the educational process for many, many